Chapter 1. The Birth of Wonder. In the gentle twilight of August 30th, 1871, as the southern hemisphere winter slowly yielded to spring, a child was born who would one day unlock the very secrets of the atom. In the rural hamlet of Spring Grove, nestled in the rolling hills near Nelson on New Zealand's South Island, Ernest Rutherford entered a world where the mysteries of matter remained hidden behind the veil of everyday experience. His father, James Rutherford, was a man whose hands knew the honest weight of labor. A Scottish immigrant who had arrived in New Zealand as a child, James worked as a flax miller and farmer, wresting sustenance from the unforgiving soil with determination that would echo through his son's scientific endeavors. The family struggled financially, yet there was richness in their simplicity, a lesson that would later inspire Ernest's famous motto, "We haven't the money, so we've got to think." Martha Thompson Rutherford, Ernest's mother, carried within her the profound belief that knowledge was power. An English schoolteacher who had immigrated to New Zealand, she understood that education could transform lives in ways that wealth alone never could. In the quiet moments of evening, as she tended to her 12 children, Martha would share this conviction with gentle persistence, planting seeds of intellectual curiosity that would grow into revolutionary discoveries. The Rutherford household buzzed with the energy of a large family, yet young Ernest, the fourth child and second son, seemed to possess an unusual quietude. His siblings called him Ern, and even as a boy, he displayed a methodical patience that set him apart from his more boisterous brothers and sisters. During the long New Zealand afternoons, while his siblings played in the creek or explored the surrounding hills, Ernest could often be found constructing small mechanisms from bits of wood and metal, his young mind already drawn to understanding how things worked. Chapter 2. The Spark of Scientific Wonder. At the tender age of 5, the Rutherford family moved to Fox Hill, where James had established a flax mill near the railway line. For young Ernest, this relocation opened new vistas of wonder. The rhythmic machinery of his father's mill became a source of endless fascination, each gear and pulley representing a puzzle to be understood. The sound of rushing water powering the mill wheels would later remind him of nature's inexhaustible energy that he would discover was locked within every atom. Ernest's formal education began at Fox Hill School, where his quick mind and methodical approach to learning soon caught his teacher's attention. At age 10, a pivotal moment arrived when he was handed his first science book. The pages, filled with descriptions of natural phenomena and scientific principles, ignited something profound within him. That very evening, inspired by what he had read about projectiles and motion, young Ernest attempted his first scientific experiment. With the resourcefulness that would characterize his entire career, he constructed a miniature cannon from scraps of metal and wood. The device was meant to demonstrate the principles of trajectory and force that he had read about in his science book. However, as his family watched in a mixture of admiration and alarm, the cannon promptly exploded, sending fragments flying across the yard. Rather than discouraging him, this unexpected result only deepened his fascination with the forces that governed physical events. The explosion taught him valuable lessons about the unpredictable nature of scientific investigation and the importance of careful observation. Even in failure, he had learned something new about pressure, materials, and the limits of his design. This early experience with experimental mishap would serve him well in his future career, where unexpected results often led to the most profound discoveries. In 1883, when Ernest was 11, the family relocated once more, this time to Havelock in the Marlborough Sounds. James Rutherford had expanded his operations and needed to be closer to his flax mill along the Ruapaka stream. For Ernest, this move brought new landscapes to explore and new phenomena to observe. The tidal movements of the sounds, the changing patterns of light on water, and the complex ecosystem of the coastal environment all fed his growing appetite for understanding the natural world. Chapter 3. The Scholar Emerges. At Havelock School, Ernest's academic abilities flourished under the guidance of dedicated teachers who recognized his exceptional potential. His methodical approach to mathematics and his intuitive grasp of physical principles set him apart from his peers. While other children might struggle with abstract concepts, Ernest seemed to visualize complex relationships with ease, a skill that would prove invaluable in his later theoretical work. In 1887, at age 16, Ernest faced a defining moment in his educational journey. He applied for a scholarship to Nelson College, one of New Zealand's most prestigious secondary schools. His first attempt fell short of the mark, but rather than accepting defeat, he spent months refining his knowledge and sharpening his skills. The discipline and persistence he demonstrated during this period would become hallmarks of his scientific method. When he attempted the scholarship examination for the second time, Ernest achieved remarkable success, scoring 580 out of 600 possible marks. This outstanding performance earned him not only the scholarship, but also recognition as one of the most promising students of his generation. As he prepared to leave home for Nelson College, the local school presented him with a 5-volume set titled The Peoples of the World, a gesture that acknowledged his intellectual curiosity and global perspective. Nelson College provided Ernest with his first taste of rigorous academic life. The Gothic Revival buildings, with their stone facades and tall windows, created an atmosphere of scholarly seriousness that inspired him to reach new heights of achievement. He excelled in nearly every subject, but mathematics and science held special appeal for his systematic mind. His teachers noted his remarkable ability to grasp complex concepts quickly and then apply them in novel ways. During his time at Nelson College, Ernest also discovered his physical capabilities on the rugby field. The sport taught him valuable lessons about teamwork, strategy, and the importance of maintaining physical fitness alongside intellectual development. The camaraderie of the rugby team provided a social balance to his intense academic pursuits, and the strategic thinking required in the game complemented his analytical approach to scientific problems. In 1889, Ernest reached another milestone when he was named head boy of Nelson College. This position of leadership revealed qualities that would later make him an exceptional mentor to young scientists. He possessed a natural ability to inspire others while maintaining the high standards he set for himself. His classmates respected his intellect while appreciating his lack of pretension, a characteristic that would define his entire career. Chapter 4: Canterbury College and the Seeds of Discovery. The scholarship Ernest won in his final year at Nelson College opened the doors to Canterbury College in Christchurch, part of the University of New Zealand system. In 1890, at age 19, he embarked on the next phase of his educational journey, leaving behind the familiar landscapes of his youth for the bustling academic environment of Canterbury College. The college, though small with only 8 faculty members and fewer than 300 students, provided an intimate setting where exceptional minds could flourish under careful guidance. Ernest's professors at Canterbury College recognized his extraordinary potential from the beginning. The college's emphasis on practical investigation and rigorous proof appealed perfectly to his methodical nature. He completed the 3-year course with distinction, earning his Bachelor of Arts degree in 1892 with first-class honors in mathematics, Latin, English, French, and physics. His academic performance was so outstanding that he was immediately offered the opportunity to pursue graduate study. The decision to continue his education for a 4th year proved transformative. Ernest embarked on independent research for the first time, investigating the ability of high-frequency electrical discharge to magnetize iron. This project introduced him to the experimental methods that would define his career: careful planning, precise measurement, and thorough analysis of results. Working with limited equipment and resources, he learned to extract maximum information from simple apparatus, a skill that would serve him throughout his life. During these productive years at Canterbury College, Ernest experienced another significant development in his personal life. He fell deeply in love with Mary Newton, the daughter of his landlady. Mary possessed a quiet intelligence and warm personality that complemented Ernest's intense focus on his studies. Their courtship unfolded against the backdrop of his academic achievements, and their mutual respect and affection grew stronger with each passing month. The completion of his Bachelor of Science degree in 1894 marked the end of Ernest's formal education in New Zealand. His research on electromagnetic phenomena had earned him recognition as one of the most promising young scientists in the colony. However, financial limitations meant that he and Mary would need to postpone their marriage until he could establish himself professionally. This separation would test their commitment but ultimately strengthen their bond. Chapter 5: The Journey to Cambridge. In 1895, Ernest received news that would change the trajectory of his life forever. He had been awarded an 1851 exhibition scholarship, providing him with the opportunity to pursue advanced study at Cambridge University in England. This prestigious scholarship, funded by profits from the Great Exhibition of 1851, was designed to support the most talented students from across the British Empire. For Ernest, it represented not just an educational opportunity, but a chance to work with the world's leading scientists. The decision to leave New Zealand was not easy. It meant separation from Mary and from the family that had supported his academic journey. Yet Ernest understood that Cambridge offered access to resources and expertise that simply did not exist in New Zealand. The Cavendish Laboratory, under the direction of J. Thomson, was at the forefront of research into electromagnetic phenomena and atomic physics. This was where the future of science was being written. In September 1895, Ernest embarked on the long journey to England. The voyage across the Pacific and through the Suez Canal provided weeks of contemplation and anticipation. He used this time to prepare mentally for the challenges ahead, reviewing his knowledge and considering the research questions that most intrigued him. The slow pace of ocean travel allowed for deep reflection, something that would become increasingly rare as his career accelerated. Upon arriving at Cambridge, Ernest was struck by the ancient beauty of the university and the weight of its intellectual tradition. The Gothic architecture and meticulously maintained courtyards spoke of centuries of scholarly pursuit. Trinity College, where he was enrolled, had been home to Newton, and Ernest felt the profound responsibility of following in such illustrious footsteps. The dining halls and libraries seemed to whisper with the conversations of great minds from previous generations. J. Thomson, the director of the Cavendish Laboratory, welcomed Ernest with characteristic warmth and insight. Thomson immediately recognized the young New Zealander's exceptional abilities and provided him with both guidance and freedom to pursue his interests. Under Thomson's mentorship, Ernest began to develop the experimental skills and theoretical understanding that would revolutionize atomic physics. Chapter 6: The Cavendish Years. Life at the Cavendish Laboratory introduced Ernest to the collaborative nature of cutting-edge scientific research. The laboratory buzzed with activity as researchers from around the world worked on problems ranging from electromagnetic radiation to the properties of gases. Ernest's methodical approach and inventive mind quickly earned him respect among his peers, many of whom would go on to become leading scientists in their own right. Ernest's first major project at Cambridge involved improving radio receiver technology. Drawing upon his work with electromagnetic phenomena at Canterbury College, he developed a more sensitive detector that could pick up radio signals over greater distances. This practical application of his theoretical knowledge demonstrated his ability to bridge the gap between pure science and technological innovation, a skill that would prove valuable throughout his career. The social aspects of Cambridge life provided Ernest with new perspectives on science and its role in society. Regular discussions with fellow researchers broadened his understanding of scientific method and introduced him to the competitive yet collaborative nature of international research. He formed friendships that would last throughout his career, creating a network of correspondents who would share ideas and discoveries across continents. Regular letters to Mary in New Zealand provided Ernest with emotional stability during this period of intense intellectual growth. His correspondence reveals not only his deep affection for her, but also his excitement about his research and his growing confidence as a scientist. These letters document his evolution from a promising student to a researcher capable of making original contributions to scientific knowledge. In 1897, Ernest achieved another significant milestone when he was awarded a Bachelor of Arts research degree and the Count-Strater studentship from Trinity College. These honors recognized his exceptional work and provided him with continued financial support for his research. More importantly, they represented validation from the Cambridge community that he possessed the rare combination of theoretical insight and experimental skill necessary for groundbreaking scientific work. However, Ernest's time at Cambridge was drawing to a close. Academic positions in Britain were limited, and opportunities for advancement were few. When the MacDonald Chair of Physics at McGill University in Montreal became available, Thomson encouraged Ernest to apply. The position would provide him with independence and resources to establish his own research program, opportunities that might not arise in Britain for many years. Chapter 7: Montreal and the Dance of Atoms. In 1898, at age 27, Ernest embarked on another transformative journey, this time to Montreal, Canada, to assume his position as professor of physics at McGill University. The appointment represented a significant step forward in his career, providing him with laboratory facilities, research funding, and the freedom to pursue the questions that most intrigued him. More importantly, it offered him the financial security necessary to marry Mary and begin building the life they had long planned together. McGill University in the late 1890s was a thriving institution with a strong commitment to scientific research. The physics department, though small, was well equipped and supported by generous benefactors who understood the importance of scientific investigation. Ernest found himself in charge of modern laboratories and a small but dedicated team of students and assistants who were eager to participate in cutting-edge research. The timing of Ernest's arrival in Montreal could not have been more fortuitous. In 1896, Henry Becquerel had discovered radioactivity, opening up an entirely new field of scientific investigation. This mysterious phenomenon, in which certain elements spontaneously emitted radiation, challenged existing understanding of atomic structure and behavior. For Ernest, radioactivity represented the perfect intersection of his interests in electromagnetic phenomena and atomic structure. Ernest's first major breakthrough came in 1899, when he identified two distinct types of radiation emitted by radioactive materials. Using his characteristic methodical approach, he demonstrated that these radiations had different properties and penetrating abilities. He named them alpha and beta radiation, terminology that remains in use today. This work established him as one of the world's leading experts on radioactivity and laid the foundation for all subsequent research in the field. In 1900, Ernest and Mary were finally able to marry, reuniting after 5 years of separation. Mary traveled from New Zealand to Montreal, and their wedding marked not just the beginning of their married life, but also the start of Ernest's most productive period as a researcher. Mary provided the emotional support and domestic stability that allowed Ernest to focus completely on his scientific work, while maintaining his connection to the human values that grounded his character. Chapter 8: Collaborative Discoveries. One of Ernest's most significant partnerships began when Frederick Soddy joined McGill University as a demonstrator in chemistry. Soddy brought complementary skills in chemical analysis that perfectly matched Ernest's expertise in physics. Together, they began investigating the chemical changes that accompanied radioactive decay, work that would fundamentally alter scientific understanding of atomic structure and behavior. The collaboration between Ernest and Soddy proved remarkably fruitful. Working together, they discovered that radioactive elements undergo spontaneous transformation into entirely different elements, a finding that challenged the long-held belief in the immutability of atoms. Their careful chemical analysis revealed that radium decay produces helium gas, providing the first clear evidence that atoms could break apart and form new elements. In 1902, Ernest and Soddy formulated their revolutionary theory of radioactive decay. They proposed that radioactive elements have a characteristic half-life, a period during which exactly half of a given sample will decay. This mathematical relationship provided a powerful tool for understanding and predicting radioactive behavior, and it opened up possibilities for dating ancient materials using radioactive decay rates. The elegant simplicity of their formula masked the profound implications for understanding the nature of matter itself. The concept of radioactive half-life represented one of Ernest's most enduring contributions to science. The mathematical precision with which radioactive decay could be described provided strong evidence that atomic processes follow predictable physical laws. This work laid the groundwork for all subsequent research in nuclear physics and established the theoretical foundation for technologies ranging from nuclear medicine to radiocarbon dating. Ernest's reputation as a leading scientist continued to grow throughout his Montreal years. His lectures drew capacity audiences, and his research papers were eagerly anticipated by the international scientific community. Students from around the world came to McGill to work with him, and the laboratory became a center of innovation in radioactivity research. The collaborative atmosphere he fostered encouraged creative thinking and rigorous experimental work. Chapter 9: The Nobel Recognition. In 1903, Ernest and Mary welcomed their daughter Eileen into the world. Born on March 30th in Montreal, Eileen brought joy and balance to Ernest's life, providing him with new perspectives on the importance of family and the broader purposes of scientific work. Mary proved to be an exceptional mother, managing their household with the same care and attention to detail that Ernest applied to his laboratory work. The early years of the new century saw Ernest's research reaching new levels of sophistication and impact. His systematic investigation of radioactive elements yielded a steady stream of discoveries that advanced scientific understanding of atomic structure. Working with increasingly refined equipment and methods, he was able to measure the properties of radioactive emissions with unprecedented precision, providing data that would prove crucial for theoretical developments. In 1908, Ernest received news that would mark the pinnacle of recognition for his scientific achievements. He had been awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his investigations into the disintegration of the elements and the chemistry of radioactive substances. The honor was particularly meaningful because it recognized not just individual discoveries, but the comprehensive body of work that had established radioactivity as a legitimate field of scientific inquiry. Interestingly, Ernest had expected that if he received a Nobel Prize, it would be in physics rather than chemistry. His surprise at receiving the chemistry award reflected the interdisciplinary nature of his work and the artificial boundaries that sometimes separate scientific fields. In his Nobel lecture, he would later remark, "I must confess it was very unexpected, and I am very startled at my metamorphosis into a chemist." The Nobel Prize brought Ernest international recognition and established him as one of the world's leading scientists. More importantly, it provided validation for the research program he had developed and the methods he had pioneered. The careful experimental work and theoretical insights that had characterized his Montreal period were now recognized as fundamental contributions to human knowledge. However, even as he savored this recognition, Ernest was already planning his next move. Opportunities were arising that would allow him to tackle even more fundamental questions about the nature of matter and the structure of atoms. The knowledge he had gained about radioactivity was providing new tools for probing the deepest secrets of the physical world. Chapter 10: Manchester and the Architecture of Atoms. In 1907, Ernest made the decision to return to England, accepting the Langworthy Chair of Physics at the University of Manchester. This appointment represented a homecoming of sorts, bringing him back to the scientific community where his career had begun. Manchester University offered him enhanced laboratory facilities, increased research funding, and the opportunity to work with some of the brightest young minds in physics. The physics department at Manchester was housed in a purpose-built laboratory designed by Arthur Schuster, Ernest's predecessor. The building incorporated the latest thinking about laboratory design, with spacious research areas, specialized equipment rooms, and careful attention to ventilation and lighting. For Ernest, these facilities represented an opportunity to pursue experimental work on a scale and with a precision that had not been possible at McGill. Ernest's arrival at Manchester coincided with growing interest in the structure of atoms themselves. While his work in Montreal had focused on radioactive decay, he now turned his attention to understanding how atoms were organized internally. The prevailing model, proposed by J.J. Thomson, suggested that atoms were composed of a uniform sphere of positive charge with negative electrons embedded throughout, like plums in a pudding. To test this model, Ernest designed an elegant experiment that would probe the internal structure of atoms directly. He would fire alpha particles, which his earlier research had shown to be positively charged, at thin metal foils and observe how they were scattered. If Thomson's model was correct, the alpha particles should pass through with only minor deflections, since the positive charge was distributed uniformly throughout the atom. Ernest enlisted two talented assistants, Hans Geiger and Ernest Marston, to carry out the detailed experimental work. Geiger, who would later become famous for inventing the radiation detector that bears his name, brought exceptional skill in experimental technique. Marston, though still an undergraduate, possessed the patience and attention to detail necessary for the painstaking observations required by the experiment. Chapter 11. The Golden Revelation. The gold foil experiment that Ernest designed was elegant in its simplicity, yet profound in its implications. A thin sheet of gold foil, only a few atoms thick, was placed in the path of alpha particles emitted by a radioactive source. Surrounding the foil was a circular screen coated with zinc sulfide, a material that produced tiny flashes of light when struck by alpha particles. By observing these scintillations through microscopes positioned at various angles, Geiger and Marston could map the scattering pattern in detail. The initial results seemed to confirm Thomson's plum pudding model. Most alpha particles passed straight through the gold foil with little or no deflection, creating a bright spot on the screen directly behind the foil. This was exactly what would be expected if atoms consisted of diffuse positive charge that could not significantly alter the paths of the relatively massive alpha particles. However, as Geiger and Marston extended their observations to larger angles, they began to notice something extraordinary. A small number of alpha particles were being scattered at very large angles, some even bouncing directly back toward the source. The frequency of these large-angle scatterings was far higher than Thomson's model could explain, suggesting that something was fundamentally wrong with the accepted picture of atomic structure. Ernest later described his reaction to these results with one of his most famous quotes. "It was almost as incredible as if you fired a 15-inch shell at a piece of tissue paper, and it came back to hit you." The observation that massive, high-energy alpha particles could be turned around completely by collision with atoms challenged everything that was known about atomic structure, and required a complete reconceptualization of how matter was organized. Working through the mathematical implications of these observations, Ernest realized that the scattering pattern could only be explained if most of the atom's mass and all of its positive charge were concentrated in an extremely small central region. The vast majority of the atom's volume had to be empty space, with electrons occupying orbits at relatively large distances from this central nucleus. This revolutionary model, proposed in 1911, established the nuclear theory of atomic structure that remains valid today. The nuclear model of the atom represented one of the most profound conceptual advances in the history of science. By demonstrating that atoms consist mostly of empty space with a tiny, dense nucleus at the center, Ernest overturned centuries of thinking about the nature of matter. The implications extended far beyond atomic physics, affecting understanding of chemistry, materials science, and ultimately leading to the development of nuclear technology. Chapter 12. The Flowering of Nuclear Physics. The nuclear model of the atom opened up entirely new avenues for scientific investigation. If atoms contained dense, positively charged nuclei, then understanding the properties and behavior of these nuclei became a crucial frontier for research. Ernest recognized that his discovery was not an end point, but rather the beginning of a new chapter in scientific understanding, one that would require new experimental techniques and theoretical frameworks. In 1912, Niels Bohr arrived at Manchester to work with Ernest, bringing fresh theoretical insights that would complement the experimental discoveries. Bohr's application of quantum theory to Ernest's nuclear model resulted in a more complete description of atomic structure, one that could explain the observed properties of different elements and predict their behavior under various conditions. The collaboration between these two giants of physics represented the kind of international cooperation that drives scientific progress. The period from 1911 to 1919 represented Ernest's most productive years as a researcher and mentor. His laboratory at Manchester became the world's leading center for nuclear physics research, attracting talented students and postdoctoral researchers from around the globe. The atmosphere he created combined rigorous experimental standards with encouragement for creative thinking, producing a generation of scientists who would carry forward the nuclear physics revolution. Among Ernest's notable students and collaborators during this period were James Chadwick, who would later discover the neutron, and Henry Moseley, who established the physical basis for the periodic table of elements. The research environment that Ernest fostered encouraged these young scientists to pursue fundamental questions with both theoretical rigor and experimental innovation, creating a model for scientific research that continues to influence laboratories around the world. Ernest's approach to scientific leadership emphasized both high standards and personal mentorship. He believed that the best science emerged from first-rate researchers working in harmony, while maintaining the freedom to pursue unconventional ideas. His famous observation that every good laboratory consists of first-rate men working in great harmony to ensure the progress of science. But down at the end of the hall is an unsociable, wrong-headed fellow working on unprofitable lines, and in his hands lies the hope of discovery, reflected his understanding that breakthrough discoveries often come from unexpected directions. The experimental techniques developed in Ernest's Manchester laboratory set new standards for precision and reliability in nuclear physics research. His insistence on simple, elegant experimental designs that could provide clear, unambiguous results established principles that continue to guide scientific investigation. The combination of theoretical insight and experimental skill that characterized his work became the gold standard for physics research. Chapter 13. The Great War and New Challenges. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 brought new responsibilities and challenges for Ernest. While his heart remained with pure scientific research, he recognized the importance of applying scientific knowledge to support his country's war effort. His expertise in radiation and electromagnetic phenomena made him a valuable consultant on various military technologies, particularly those related to submarine detection. Ernest's wartime research focused on developing underwater detection systems using piezoelectricity. Working alongside Paul Langevin, he contributed to the development of technologies that would later evolve into modern sonar systems. This work demonstrated his ability to apply fundamental scientific principles to practical problems, a skill that would prove valuable in his later administrative roles. Despite the demands of wartime research, Ernest continued his fundamental investigations into nuclear physics. In 1917, he achieved another landmark discovery when he successfully induced the first artificial nuclear reaction. By bombarding nitrogen atoms with alpha particles, he was able to transform them into oxygen atoms, proving that atomic nuclei could be artificially altered. This work established the field of nuclear chemistry and opened up possibilities for nuclear transmutation. The discovery of artificial nuclear transmutation represented a culmination of Ernest's research program. By demonstrating that one element could be transformed into another through nuclear bombardment, he had achieved the ancient alchemical dream through modern scientific methods. More importantly, he had shown that atomic nuclei were not immutable, but could be manipulated using appropriate techniques and energy sources. The protons that Ernest observed being emitted during these nuclear reactions provided crucial evidence for understanding nuclear structure. His identification of these hydrogen nuclei as fundamental particles helped establish the concept of nuclear constituents and laid the groundwork for future discoveries about nuclear composition. The systematic study of nuclear reactions that began with this work would eventually lead to both nuclear power and nuclear weapons. Throughout the war years, Ernest maintained his commitment to international scientific cooperation despite the political tensions of the time. He continued to correspond with colleagues in neutral countries and maintained relationships that would prove crucial for post-war reconstruction of the international scientific community. His belief in the universal nature of scientific truth transcended national boundaries and political divisions. Chapter 14. The Return to Cambridge. In 1919, Ernest received an invitation that would define the final phase of his career. J.J. Thomson, his former mentor, was stepping down as Cavendish Professor and Director of the Cavendish Laboratory at Cambridge University. The position was offered to Ernest, representing both a homecoming and an opportunity to shape the future direction of British physics. After careful consideration, he accepted the appointment and returned to the institution where his career had begun. The transition to Cambridge marked a significant change in Ernest's role within the scientific community. While he would continue his research, he now carried primary responsibility for one of the world's most prestigious physics laboratories. The Cavendish Laboratory, under his direction, would need to maintain its leading position in an increasingly competitive international environment while fostering the next generation of scientific leaders. Ernest brought to his new position not only his scientific expertise, but also his proven ability to create collaborative research environments. The Manchester model of combining theoretical insight with experimental innovation became the foundation for his approach to directing the Cavendish Laboratory. He encouraged researchers to pursue fundamental questions while maintaining the highest standards of experimental rigor and theoretical sophistication. One of Ernest's first priorities was establishing a strong research program in nuclear physics at Cambridge. He brought with him several key collaborators from Manchester, including James Chadwick, who would play a crucial role in the laboratory's future discoveries. The combination of Cambridge's resources and facilities with Ernest's research vision created the conditions for continued breakthrough discoveries in nuclear science. The 1920s saw the Cavendish Laboratory, under Ernest's direction, become the world's leading center for nuclear physics research. The laboratory's work during this period established the experimental and theoretical foundations for understanding atomic nuclei, leading to discoveries that would revolutionize both science and technology. The collaborative atmosphere that Ernest fostered encouraged creative interaction between researchers from many different countries and backgrounds. Ernest's administrative responsibilities required him to balance his scientific interests with broader concerns about the role of science in society. He served as president of the Royal Society from 1925 to 1930, using this platform to advocate for increased support for scientific research and education. His vision of science as a collaborative international enterprise guided his efforts to strengthen scientific institutions and promote international cooperation. Chapter 15: The Golden Age of Nuclear Discovery. The year 1932 would later be remembered as the miraculous year of nuclear physics. Under Ernest's leadership, the Cavendish Laboratory achieved a series of breakthrough discoveries that fundamentally advanced understanding of atomic nuclei and established the foundation for modern nuclear science. The combination of theoretical insight, experimental innovation, and collaborative research that Ernest had fostered created the perfect conditions for these revolutionary developments. The discovery of the neutron by James Chadwick in February 1932 represented the culmination of years of careful investigation. Ernest had long theorized about the existence of a neutral particle that could help explain nuclear structure and behavior. Chadwick's elegant experiments provided definitive proof of the neutron's existence and established its properties, completing the basic picture of nuclear composition that includes protons and neutrons as the fundamental nuclear constituents. Later that same year, John Cockcroft and Ernest Walton, working under Ernest's direction, achieved the first controlled nuclear reaction using artificially accelerated particles. Their particle accelerator, built with Ernest's encouragement and support, demonstrated that nuclear reactions could be initiated and controlled using mechanical devices, rather than relying solely on naturally occurring radioactive sources. This work opened the door to experimental nuclear physics on a scale previously impossible to achieve. Patrick Blackett's cloud chamber observations during this period provided visual evidence of nuclear reactions and particle interactions. His photographs captured the tracks left by particles during nuclear collisions, offering direct evidence for the processes that Ernest had inferred from his earlier statistical studies. These images made the invisible world of nuclear interactions visible and comprehensible to both scientists and the general public. The experimental techniques developed at the Cavendish Laboratory during this period established the methodological foundation for all subsequent research in nuclear and particle physics. Ernest's emphasis on simple, elegant experimental designs that could provide clear, unambiguous results set standards that continue to guide scientific investigation. The combination of theoretical understanding and experimental innovation that characterized this work became the model for modern physics research. Ernest's role during this golden period extended beyond direct research supervision to include strategic planning for the future of nuclear science. He recognized that the discoveries being made at Cambridge had profound implications for both scientific understanding and practical applications. His efforts to balance pure research with consideration of societal implications reflected his mature understanding of science's role in human affairs. Chapter 16: The Mentor and the Legacy. Throughout his career, Ernest demonstrated an exceptional ability to identify and nurture scientific talent. His laboratories at McGill, Manchester, and Cambridge became training grounds for future Nobel laureates and scientific leaders. The research environment he created combined high expectations with supportive mentorship, encouraging young scientists to pursue ambitious research programs while maintaining rigorous experimental and theoretical standards. Among Ernest's most notable students were James Chadwick, who discovered the neutron, Niels Bohr, who developed the quantum mechanical model of the atom, and Otto Hahn, who would later achieve nuclear fission. Each of these scientists carried forward aspects of Ernest's approach to research while developing their own distinctive contributions to scientific knowledge. The multiplier effect of his influence extended far beyond his direct discoveries to encompass the work of dozens of researchers whom he trained and inspired. Ernest's teaching philosophy emphasized the importance of understanding fundamental principles rather than memorizing facts. He believed that a deep grasp of basic concepts would enable students to tackle new problems creatively and effectively. His famous assertion that a theory that you can't explain to a bartender is probably no damn good reflected his conviction that scientific understanding should be clear and communicable rather than unnecessarily complex or obscure. The research culture that Ernest established emphasized collaboration while respecting individual creativity and initiative. He understood that breakthrough discoveries often emerged from unexpected directions and encouraged researchers to pursue unconventional ideas. His observation that discovery often came from an unsociable, wrong-headed fellow working on unprofitable lines reflected his appreciation for the role of independent thinking in scientific progress. Ernest's influence extended beyond his immediate students to shape the entire culture of experimental physics. His emphasis on simple, elegant experimental designs and clear, unambiguous results established standards that became widely adopted throughout the scientific community. The combination of theoretical insight and experimental skill that characterized his work became the gold standard for physics research methods. The institutional legacy of Ernest's leadership can be seen in the continued prominence of the laboratories and departments he directed. The Cavendish Laboratory, under his guidance, became a model for physics research institutions around the world, and the collaborative research culture he established continues to influence scientific work decades after his death. His vision of science as a cooperative international enterprise helped shape the modern structure of scientific research and collaboration. Chapter 17: Personal Reflections and Family Life. Despite his intense focus on scientific research, Ernest maintained strong connections to family and personal relationships throughout his life. His marriage to Mary provided stability and emotional support that enabled him to pursue demanding research programs while maintaining perspective on the broader purposes of scientific work. Mary's understanding of his dedication to science, combined with her own intelligence and warmth, created a household environment that nurtured both scientific achievement and human values. The birth of their daughter Eileen in 1901 brought new dimensions to Ernest's life, providing him with insights into human development and the importance of education in shaping future generations. His observations of Eileen's intellectual development reinforced his belief in the power of curiosity and careful observation to unlock understanding of natural phenomena. The joy he took in her achievements paralleled his satisfaction with the discoveries of his students and collaborators. Eileen's marriage to Ralph Fowler in 1921 connected Ernest to another generation of Cambridge mathematicians and physicists. Fowler was a brilliant mathematical physicist who contributed significantly to the development of statistical mechanics and quantum theory. The marriage represented not only personal happiness for Eileen and Ernest, but also the continuation of scientific tradition across generations within their extended family. The tragic death of Eileen in 1930 at age 29 from complications following childbirth devastated Ernest and Mary. The loss of their only child challenged Ernest's fundamental optimism and forced him to confront the limitations of scientific knowledge in addressing life's deepest sorrows. Friends and colleagues noted that while he continued his research with characteristic dedication, The loss of Eileen left a permanent shadow over his personal happiness. Ernest found solace in his grandchildren, who reminded him of the continuity of life and the importance of passing knowledge and values to future generations. His interactions with Eileen's children provided opportunities to share his love of science and natural phenomena with a new generation, continuing the educational mission that had been so important to his mother Martha decades earlier in New Zealand. Throughout his personal challenges, Ernest maintained his commitment to the collaborative ideals that had guided his scientific career. His home remained a gathering place for scientists from around the world, and his generous hospitality extended the collaborative spirit of his laboratory into his personal life. These social connections enriched both his scientific work and his understanding of science's role in building international understanding and cooperation. Chapter 18: The Elder Statesman of Science. As Ernest entered his 60s, his role in the scientific community evolved from that of active researcher to elder statesman and advocate for science. His appointment to various governmental advisory positions and his presidency of the Royal Society provided platforms for influencing science policy and promoting public understanding of scientific research. These responsibilities reflected recognition of his wisdom and judgment in matters extending far beyond nuclear physics. Ernest's advocacy for scientific education and research funding reflected his understanding that scientific progress required sustained institutional support. His efforts to establish government funding for scientific research in Britain helped create the infrastructure that would support British science through the mid-20th century. His vision of science as a national resource requiring public investment became increasingly influential as governments recognized the strategic importance of scientific capability. Ernest's later years were marked by increasing recognition of the practical implications of nuclear physics research. While he had always pursued fundamental understanding for its own sake, he began to appreciate that nuclear science might lead to revolutionary applications in both peaceful and military contexts. His prescient observations about the potential for both nuclear power and nuclear weapons reflected his mature understanding of science's dual potential for human benefit and destruction. The honors that accumulated during Ernest's later career reflected international recognition of his contributions to scientific knowledge and scientific leadership. His knighthood in 1914, his elevation to the Order of Merit in 1925, and his creation as Baron Rutherford of Nelson in 1930. 1. Acknowledged not only his scientific discoveries, but also his service to the scientific community and his influence on public policy. These honors provided platforms for continued advocacy for scientific research and education. Despite his elevated status, Ernest remained accessible to young scientists and maintained his commitment to experimental work. Colleagues noted that he continued to spend time in the laboratory, working alongside students and postdoctoral researchers on current problems. His hands-on approach to research and his willingness to engage with detailed experimental questions demonstrated that administrative responsibilities had not diminished his fundamental love of scientific discovery. Chapter 19: The Philosophy of Scientific Discovery. Throughout his career, Ernest developed a distinctive philosophy of scientific investigation that emphasized simplicity, clarity, and empirical verification. His famous assertion that all science is either physics or stamp collecting reflected his belief that true scientific understanding required identification of fundamental principles rather than mere accumulation of facts. This perspective guided his approach to research and influenced generations of scientists who worked with him. Ernest's experimental philosophy emphasized the importance of elegant, simple designs that could provide clear, unambiguous results. He believed that the best experiments were those that asked focused questions and provided definitive answers, avoiding the complexity and ambiguity that could cloud interpretation. His insistence that experimental apparatus should be as simple as possible while still achieving the necessary precision established standards that continue to influence scientific practice. The theoretical framework that Ernest brought to his research combined respect for established principles with openness to revolutionary possibilities. His willingness to question fundamental assumptions about atomic structure, demonstrated in his interpretation of the gold foil experiment results, showed that he valued empirical evidence over theoretical preconceptions. This balanced approach enabled him to make discoveries that might have been missed by researchers too committed to existing theoretical frameworks. Ernest's approach to scientific collaboration emphasized the importance of combining different types of expertise while maintaining clear communication and shared standards. His partnerships with chemists like Frederick Soddy and theorists like Niels Bohr demonstrated his understanding that modern scientific problems often required interdisciplinary approaches. His ability to facilitate productive collaborations between researchers with different backgrounds became a model for scientific teamwork. The educational philosophy that Ernest developed through his mentoring of students emphasized the importance of independent thinking combined with rigorous experimental training. He believed that the best scientists were those who could identify important questions, design appropriate experiments, and interpret results objectively. His students learned not just experimental techniques, but also the habits of mind that enable scientific discovery. Ernest's mature perspective on the relationship between science and society reflected his recognition that scientific knowledge carried both opportunities and responsibilities. His later advocacy for government support of scientific research was balanced by awareness that scientific discoveries could have profound social implications. This nuanced understanding of science's role in society influenced his approach to both research and public engagement throughout his later career. Chapter 20: The Final Years and Enduring Impact. The mid-1930s brought signs that Ernest's extraordinary energy and health were beginning to decline. While he maintained his research interests and administrative responsibilities, those close to him noticed that he was slowing down and beginning to contemplate the legacy of his scientific career. His continued work on nuclear physics problems reflected his undiminished intellectual curiosity, but the pace and intensity of his activities showed the effects of decades of intensive research and leadership. In 1937, Ernest began experiencing health problems that would ultimately prove fatal. What initially appeared to be relatively minor abdominal discomfort was eventually diagnosed as a strangulated hernia, requiring immediate surgical intervention. The surgery, performed on October 19, 1937, initially seemed successful, but complications developed that led to his death that evening at the age of 66. The news of Ernest's death sent shockwaves through the international scientific community. Colleagues and students from around the world expressed their grief at the loss of not only a great scientist, but also a mentor and friend who had shaped their careers and influenced their understanding of scientific work. The tributes that poured in testified to both his scientific achievements and his personal impact on the lives of those who had worked with him. The funeral service held at Westminster Abbey on October 25, 1937, reflected the nation's recognition of Ernest's contributions to science and society. His ashes were interred in the nave near the graves of Newton, Darwin, and Kelvin, symbolically linking him with the great scientists who had preceded him in advancing human understanding of the natural world. The ceremony brought together representatives from scientific institutions around the world, demonstrating the international respect he had earned. The scientific legacy that Ernest left behind extended far beyond his specific discoveries to encompass the methods, institutions, and collaborative relationships that he had established. The nuclear model of the atom, the understanding of radioactive decay, and the techniques of nuclear physics research that he had developed provided the foundation for decades of subsequent scientific progress. His influence on the structure and culture of scientific research proved as lasting as his particular contributions to knowledge. The practical applications that emerged from Ernest's fundamental research validated his belief that basic scientific investigation ultimately serves human needs. The development of nuclear medicine, radiocarbon dating, nuclear power generation, and nuclear weapons all trace their origins to the atomic and nuclear physics that he had pioneered. While some of these applications raised ethical questions that concerned him in his later years, they demonstrated the profound practical significance of his scientific work. Chapter 21: The Ripple Effects of Discovery. The influence of Ernest's work extended far beyond the immediate circle of his students and collaborators to reshape entire fields of scientific investigation. The nuclear model of the atom provided the foundation for quantum mechanics, solid-state physics, and modern chemistry, enabling scientific advances that he could not have anticipated when he first interpreted the results of the gold foil experiment. This multiplicative effect of fundamental discoveries illustrates the unpredictable but profound impact that basic research can have on human knowledge and capability. The institutional model that Ernest established for collaborative scientific research became the template for modern scientific laboratories and research centers. His emphasis on combining theoretical insight with experimental innovation, fostering international collaboration, and maintaining high standards while encouraging creative risk-taking, influenced the organization of scientific work throughout the 20th century. Major research institutions around the world adopted elements of the research culture that he had pioneered. The educational impact of Ernest's work extended through the many scientists he trained to influence scientific education at universities around the world. His students carried forward not only specific technical knowledge, but also his approach to scientific problem-solving, his standards for experimental rigor, and his vision of science as a collaborative international enterprise. This pedagogical legacy shaped scientific education for generations and continues to influence how scientists are trained today. The public understanding of science was significantly advanced by Ernest's discoveries and his efforts to communicate scientific knowledge to broader audiences. His work on atomic structure and radioactivity captured public imagination and helped establish popular awareness of atomic and nuclear phenomena. His clear, accessible explanations of complex scientific concepts set standards for scientific communication that influenced how scientists engage with public audiences. The technological innovations that grew out of Ernest's research created entirely new industries and capabilities that transformed modern society. Nuclear medicine provided new tools for medical diagnosis and treatment. Nuclear power offered alternative energy sources, and nuclear technology created both opportunities and challenges that continue to shape international relations. These applications demonstrate the far-reaching consequences of fundamental scientific discoveries. The philosophical implications of Ernest's work contributed to broader changes in scientific thinking and methodology. His demonstration that atoms could be artificially transmitted challenged static views of matter and opened up dynamic perspectives on natural phenomena. His emphasis on empirical verification and simple, elegant experimental design influenced scientific methodology across many disciplines, establishing principles that continue to guide scientific investigation. As the gentle evening light fades, and we reach the conclusion of this exploration of Ernest Rutherford's remarkable life, we find ourselves enriched by the story of a man whose curiosity about the natural world led to discoveries that transformed human understanding of reality itself. From his humble beginnings in rural New Zealand to his position as one of history's most influential scientists, Ernest's journey illustrates the profound impact that individual dedication and collaborative effort can have on the advancement of human knowledge. The scientific achievements that marked Ernest's career, from his early work on radioactivity to his revolutionary nuclear model of the atom, represent milestones in humanity's quest to understand the fundamental nature of matter and energy. His discoveries opened up entirely new fields of investigation and provided the foundation for technologies that continue to shape modern life. Yet perhaps even more important than his specific contributions was his demonstration of how scientific investigation should be conducted with rigor, creativity, and collaborative spirit. The personal qualities that enabled Ernest's success, including his methodical approach to problem solving, his ability to inspire and mentor young scientists, and his commitment to international cooperation, offer enduring lessons for anyone seeking to make meaningful contributions to human knowledge. His life demonstrates that scientific achievement emerges from the combination of individual talent with supportive relationships, educational opportunities, and institutional frameworks that encourage innovation and discovery. The human dimensions of Ernest's story, including his devotion to family, his loyalty to students and colleagues, and his recognition of science's social responsibilities, remind us that scientific work occurs within the broader context of human values and relationships. His ability to maintain personal integrity while achieving professional excellence provides a model for navigating the complex demands of contemporary scientific careers while remaining true to fundamental human values. The legacy that Ernest left behind extends far beyond his specific discoveries to encompass the methods, institutions, and collaborative traditions that continue to guide scientific investigation today. His influence on scientific education, research methodology, and international scientific cooperation shaped the development of modern science and continues to provide guidance for contemporary researchers facing new challenges and opportunities. As we reflect on Ernest Rutherford's extraordinary life and enduring contributions to human knowledge, we are reminded of the power of curiosity, dedication, and collaborative effort to unlock the secrets of the natural world and expand the boundaries of human understanding. His story inspires us to approach our own challenges with the same combination of wonder, rigor, and commitment to truth that characterized his remarkable scientific journey. In the peaceful quiet of this moment, as we contemplate the legacy of this remarkable scientist, we can appreciate how one person's dedication to understanding the natural world can create ripples of discovery that extend across generations and continents, ultimately enriching all of human civilization with new knowledge and capabilities that continue to serve human needs and advance human understanding of our place in the vast, mysterious, and beautiful universe that surrounds us. I hope this exploration of Ernest Rutherford's life has provided you with both knowledge and inspiration. If you found this journey through the life of one of science's greatest figures meaningful, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your engagement helps make these deep explorations possible. What aspect of Rutherford's life or work resonated most deeply with you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about how his story of curiosity, persistence, and collaborative spirit might inspire your own journey of discovery and understanding.